Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to my spoiler review of the Five Nights at Freddy's movie. Now, first of all, I want to let you all know, obviously, this video is going to be filled with spoilers for what went down in the film. So, if you don't want to be spoiled, go check out my last review on the film, which is spoiler-free. I'll leave it in one of the top corners of the screen right now. But without further ado, this video is going to be full of spoilers. So, this is your final warning. I'm going to be going over what happened in the film, the beginning, the kills, and definitely the ending, and what I thought of the film overall when it comes to spoilers. So this is your final warning in 3, 2, 1, here we go. So let's get straight into from the beginning, the opening of the film. The security guard that is trying to escape through the vent system and obviously has a lot of things blocking the door. As you can hear someone pounding on the door. It's predictably Foxy, since that is what he done in the original games, to where he climbs out of the vents and eventually gets killed off screen until he pops up in the Torture Freddy device as we slowly hear his face get sawed into multiple pieces. And it was a very strong opening. I thought it just showed off the atmosphere of the pizzeria extremely well, because all you could see was the pizzeria and the ambience, and you could just hear screaming in the back room, which was definitely something that, set up the tone for the movie, and I think it had a very, very strong opening for what we were all expecting. And also with the credits of the first, 10 minutes, it's really cool because in 8-bit form we get to see Springtrap or Spring Bonnie, William Afton, actually commit the murders of the 5 children. That's awesome. But yeah, getting into the plot, we have Mike, who has a severely bad sort of trauma problem when it comes to his younger brother, as officially called Garrett. We also have a custody battle between him and his aunt over the custody of Abby, the little girl in this film, played by Piper. I can't remember her second name. But she is probably one of the best parts about this film, other than the animatronics. I think Piper is an amazing part of this film. She really brings the heart and soul of this film into fruition, as well as Mike. I think Josh Hutcherson, unbelievable performance from him. He really shows how much trauma Mike has gone through very vividly, and he does it excellently. The only thing I wasn't really happy about, it was consistently showing the same scene over and over and over again. Now, I know it's meant to be dreams and all that stuff, but there has to be a stage where you have to align them quite similarly. And for me, when it was just consistently going from dream, it gets a bit repetitive. However, I did think it was quite cool how the book Mike is reading is called Dream Theory. It's a very subtle nod to the game theory of the whole storyline being a dream when it comes to Fnaf 4. I think it was a really cool reference, and they pretty much, use that as a very specific plot point in this film of how Mike can try and communicate with the spirits of the missing children through his dreams and change the outcome and try and see who actually, took Garrett when he was younger. Obviously, we know as a FNAF fan who the only person in the entire FNAF storyline who could actually take a child, we all know who that was going to be when we watched the film. I thought it was a little bit too predictable on that point. However, when we develop, we get to introduce into the characters, obviously the animatronics. It's a very cool experience getting to see the animatronics actually perform, and especially when Elizabeth Lyle, Vanessa, comes into fruition in the film. However, I did think she was extremely suspicious. I feel that, her knowing everything about the pizzeria, the backstory, what happens later in the film is kind of too expected. But as a FNAF fan, you're kind of taken aback when you find out that she is William Afton's daughter. You're kind of sitting there like, what? You're kind of sitting there like, where is that coming from? And honestly, I'm very impressed that they done that. They completely flipped the lore on top of its head, which I'm very proud of them for. I think it took a lot of balls to actually go and do that to the FNAF storyline. Personally, it didn't work, but it took guts to actually change such a huge storyline. And honestly, pretty much confirming that Mike Schmidt is not Michael Afton. This pretty much confirms it. However, that does not leave the question. That could be the question that Michael Afton could still exist in this universe. We just don't know. He could be. I highly doubt it. But a lot of people are going to be thinking to themselves, but how are they going to develop a Mike versus Afton sort of, sort of rivalry, because that's all what the games are about. William Afton's motive is to go and kill Michael. That's his whole motive of how he escapes FNAF 3. He's like, oh, I want to get Michael. He's the one person he wants. Is any VHS tape you watch, it's always William wants Michael. So there's definitely a way they can do that in this film, purely because it's almost like when it comes to the ending of this film, Mike is working with the animatronics. Like, realistically, that's what ends up in resulting in what happens in the ending, which I'll get into later. But I also did predict some things that happened in this film. I did predict Balloon Boy would be in this film. He sort of was. He was more of just a figurine, but he was still in the film. I'm taking full credit. Also, with the whole theory of the animatronics being friendly. And they are. They are friendly in this film. There's like a 10-minute stage where they're not. But for majority of the film, they are not harmful to Abby especially. They harm Mike maybe 3 or 4 times. That's about it. Like, it gets to a stage where they're building pillow forts or table forts together. And that really took me aback. I was like, okay, this is really weird, because this is genuinely a together we are FNAF scene. And for me, I was kind of taken aback, like, this is not very serious whatsoever. Especially when you see them all lying down, like Freddy here, Foxy, Bonnie, Chica. Then you have Elizabeth Lyle, Vanessa, Abby, and then Mike. And you're kind of sitting there like, why are they being friendly? Like, how does this go on from here? And then it comes into the main plot of this film, is that the animatronics want to take Abby. Which is a very cool thing. It's like, it was kind of leaked in the trailers as well, that they, they want to turn Abby into like them, which is what Vanessa says. But I find it cool how they done that plot point, especially when it comes to the aunt in this film, because she's a bit of an ass. I really didn't like the aunt, and she was the sort of female villain that was in the cast announced a few months ago, which I didn't expect at all, to be honest. But there's obviously a few things I'm leaving out when it comes to plot points, so I'm not going to jump to the ending just yet. So let's get into the cameos of this film. We have Corey Kenshin, and also, it's just a theory, MatPat is actually in this film. The cool thing about this, he plays a waiter in a diner called Sparky's Diner. Now, for those who like FNAF will know who Sparky is, who actually has an animatronic in this film. If you haven't seen the film and you're just kind of watching this video to know what it's like, I guess. Sparky's in this film. He isn't alive or nothing or functional, but Sparky has an animatronic in the back room here, which I think is so cool. But yeah, the diner is called Sparky's Diner, and we get to see MatPat say his signature phrase, "It's just a theory." If I remember correctly, the line is sort of like, oh, lunch is the most important meal of the day. One other character says, what, is that not breakfast? And then he goes, well, you never know, that's just a theory. And I think that's pretty cool, the way they got him to say that line, because my theater were cheering as soon as he popped up on screen, along with myself. So that was pretty awesome. Another thing to move on to is the kills. The kills were a huge thing I was interested in this film. And there's not many, but my god, do they do them well. I think the kills in this film are extremely effective. A lot of them are in the trailer, unfortunately. That's another thing I kind of was annoyed about. They pretty much showed every kill in the trailer. For example, every one of the thieves do end up dying in this film. We get Hank being killed by Bonnie in the supply closet. We get Carl killed by the cupcake. Cupcake, I'm still going to call the cupcake Carl, I don't care. Getting his face munched off. We also get, I can't remember the dude's name, but he was kind of the main threat, getting killed off screen by Foxy. And by far, the kill of the movie, Max getting bitten in half by Freddy. That was unbelievable. That caught my cinema off, completely off guard. Because as a fan of horror in general, when it comes to PG-13, I fully expect the hand to grab Max and it then cut away. I did not expect it to continue on, show a shadow of Max's body being completely torn in half. I did not expect that whatsoever, and I was applauding in the cinema. I was so happy that they actually had the balls to do that in a PG-13 movie. And the fact that they didn't even show any blood is an exact reasoning why a 15A is in Ireland, but a PG-13 movie, how they can be effective. And there was one kill they got wrong, And this is the ending. The kill, in my opinion, that was very, very underwhelming. And that is the death of William Afton. The death of William Afton in this film, yes, is the Springlock scene. The Springlock scene is in this film. However, was it done to a certain capability, even with 15A PG-13? No, not at all. Yes, we get to see his body, actually disintegrate into the suit. I saw a lot of people actually complaining that the Springlock scene was it was so underwhelming. Yes, I can see where they're coming from. However, when you put it this way, right, the Springlocks in the suit, they go into your throat. A lot of people were saying, why wasn't he screaming? His vocal cords are being torn apart, man. He's not going to be able to scream. And I think Matthew Lillard does the Springlock scene extremely well. And how it actually happens is awesome. Because basically, towards the last 20 minutes of this film, the animatronics are just purely going for the kill. They completely shatter Mike. He has tears all over his body, and it's done really, really well. He even gets his leg chomped on by Carl the Cupcake, which is an awesome scene. But there's a scene where basically they've all surrounded Abby, and you honestly think they're gonna get her. You genuinely think the animatronics, this is the end for Abby. However, when Mike comes into the room and tries to, take Abby away, and then goes to the entrance of the actual pizzeria, it flashes and he looks at the darkness, and anyone who's seen the trailer or knows about the lore knew what was coming next. As Spring Bonnie slowly emerges from the darkness, an absolutely amazing shot. And then we actually see the full look of him. And my God, was he big in this film. Spring Bonnie is huge in this film. Comparison to, Freddy, he's about the same size. And bear in mind, I think Freddy's 7-8 feet. So, yeah, that's crazy. But he absolutely obliterates Mike. He beats him down, throws him across the entire dining area of the pizzeria. It's crazy how strong he actually is, which I didn't expect, because it only comes to fruition when Springlocks actually go off and he becomes Springtrap, is where he actually gains his sort of, abilities, so to say. And that's where it kind of got confusing for me. I was like, whoa, is he actually just this strong, or is it just a suit? And this is where all the animatronics are kind of just watching him beat up Mike. And it's mentioned that he actually still has control over the animatronics, as the souls inside them do not know who the killer is. They only know about a bunny. And the photo that was shown in the trailer of the yellow bunny holding the hands of each kid is there by William Afton. He's put that there to show to the animatronics, oh no, the yellow rabbit is your friend. However, when Abby draws a new photo of a golden rabbit killing the 5 kids and puts it on the wall, all the animatronics start to turn on him. Their eyes glow red. I honestly thought the red eyes in this film were extremely well done. They genuinely were not bad whatsoever. I was fuming when they were shown in the trailers with red eyes. But man, I'm telling you, the red eyes in this film work super, super well, especially with Foxy. Foxy is just magnifico. And for me, the best shot of this film, moving kind of on from the Springlock scene, is basically there's a scene when Abby is running around the pizzeria because she's trying to escape the animatronics. There's a scene where the kid spirit of Foxy is hiding behind the curtain, and he steps back, and when it steps forward, the Foxy animatronic comes out of the curtain. It's an unbelievable shot. But before any of the animatronics can get their hands on William, he actually grabs Vanessa, as it's obviously shown that, Vanessa is your daughter, bro. We know what William's like with his family members, as he just stabs her. He just gets her right in the gut and just lets her drop, as all of a sudden the animatronics circle around William as he's taken off his helmet at this stage. He's Matthew Lillard under the mask. And as you can see, he's being surrounded by the animatronics. And he's you're so small. Look who you are. You're monsters. You're beasts. Doesn't really work for him, because Chica decides to let Carl loose as Carl tears out one of the fluffy bits of the Spring Bonnie suit, which actually reveals the Springlocks. And due to the pressure of Carl biting on the suit, one of the Springlocks actually go off and just impale him. And you just see him slowly get stabbed limb by limb. And personally, it wasn't the greatest way of doing the Springlock scene. but it's a really nice kill. It's a satisfying end to him, in my opinion. I think it's still really well done. I know a lot of FNAF fans aren't happy with how it is. Personally, I think it was done pretty well. I think the kills in this film were amazing for a PG-13 rating, because I'll be honest, I would have them rather toned down Max's kill to amplify the Springlock scene, but look, it is how it is. I also think the fact that they showed the kids getting killed in 8-bit was an amazing way of doing it, because exactly how the games do it, and it's just as effective. It's honestly creepy, because it's just the opening credits with all the names popping up, but if you're an actual FNAF fan, you just kind of see, you're like, oh my god, hold on, this is the kids getting taken. Like, this is the kids getting killed. And when you think of it that way, you're kind of like, this is so much more disturbing for what I'm actually seeing. And that's a really good way of displaying horror, in my opinion, without any gore. And the way this film ends is really, really nice. As we see Aton twitching in the suit, he puts the mask back on, but before it's fully on, he just goes, I always come back. And that was a great way to depict the actual I always come back line. However, it could have been done a lot better. And that's a lot of this film is. It was good, but it could have been done better. I still think it's a perfect adaptation of the FNAF story. I absolutely love it. I'm 100% getting the Blu-ray, and it will be up there right beside my little figurines there in the Funko Pops. But for me, I think the I always come back line was delivered a little bit too quickly. Not on Matthew Lillard's part, but on the script's part. I feel like it would have been better if he put on the mask, looks at Freddy, and then says it as he's about to die. Because it's almost like he goes, I always come back, puts on the mask, and then kind of just accepts the Springlocks killing him. And it's very psychotic. He's depicted very psychotically by Matthew Lillard. And the only gripe I have with this film is that he's not in it more. He's genuinely only in about 4 or 5 scenes, Matthew Lillard, which is very poor. But look, it's a 3-movie deal. We're going to get a lot more of them, I'm sure. However, I just think this movie is done so well. And especially with the ending, as all the animatronics slowly grab William as Foxy hooks, I think it's like his collarbone here, hooks his collarbone as they drag him to the back room as he sits there twitching like he does in the FNAF 3 trailer, which is awesome, and I just find that so cool. However, there was a scene in this film that I wanted to leave towards the end of this video, and it was very off-putting for myself. The fact that Golden Freddy is in this film, and don't get me wrong, it's so cool. It's so cool. I just don't really think it makes much sense. But man, when Golden Freddy comes up on screen, it is so cool, man. I promise you, if you're a FNAF fan, you're going to find it so cool. Because basically, it's like in the middle of the film towards the third act. The aunt is babysitting Abby, as pretty much she thinks that Mike is going to hand Abby over to the aunt. However, she's sitting there watching the TV as a light flickers behind her and Golden Freddy is just there. And my whole audience just gasped. We're like, oh my god, it's Golden Freddy. Like, yo. And I was sitting there like, oh my god. And next thing you know, the kid depiction, who I honestly think might be Golden Freddy and not normal Freddy, it's this kid here, depicts Abby and says, okay, it's time to play, and then they go back to the pizzeria, and that's when the third act ensues. But they actually kill the aunt. Golden Freddy actually kills the aunt off screen, which is awesome. But there's one thing to end off this video, and that's the ending kind of end credit scene with Corey. Corey Kenshin is the taxi driver that takes Golden Freddy and Abby back to the pizzeria, but he also shows up in like a mid-credit scene, as basically he's sitting asleep in the car as someone opens the door, and I'm just sitting there like, who could this be? Who is going to be sitting beside Corey? Is it going to be an animatronic? Probably not, because it's not very heavy. And also, would it be like Henry maybe, or even, Elizabeth Afton possibly? I don't know. There's so many possibilities. And I'm thinking to myself, who is this going to be? And next thing you know, the camera cuts to the other seat, and it's the figurine of Balloon Boy for one final jump scare, which was awesome. And then the Living Tombstone song starts playing. It was a really good fan service, especially with the kind of end credit scene. Honestly, I didn't even hear it because of how loud my audience were cheering, which is awesome. However, I did find it online, and it's a Morse code message with the puppet music playing in the background saying, come find me. And as you know, it's basically on the minigame of the puppet saying, "Come find me." This was an awesome way to end it with a little bit of lore, kind of leading towards a sequel. I think regardless of the critic reviews that you're going to see online, this movie's going to get a sequel. The Peacock subscription alone is going to shoot up just to watch this film at home, because there's going to be people under the age of 15 who will have to subscribe to Peacock to go and watch the film. And I feel like that's the best way that this movie's going to make so much money, because it was only made on a $25 million budget, and that might seem like a lot of money, but man, in Hollywood nowadays, that's nothing. And Blumhouse is really good at that, with making movies on the cheap and making a really big profit. And I'd imagine that they're probably going to make around 90 million. So I would imagine that because it's going to be like a 70 million plus increase in profit, I think they're going to get a sequel. But that is my spoiler review on the Fnaf movie. I hope you did enjoy it. If you've already seen the Fnaf movie, which I hope you have if you've gone and watched through this whole video, let me know what you thought of it down in the comments below. I'm really intrigued to see what everyone else thinks of this movie by the end of it. I got an early screening, so my review kind of went out a lot earlier than people have seen it, especially in the US, as it's releasing on Peacock and in the US last night, because it's the 27th of recording. And thank you all so much for watching. I hope you have an amazing day, and as always, stay safe and peace. Completely disappeared. However, it cuts to the closet of the parents' bedroom, where we hear a muffled mumbling in the closet. Obviously, the mum is now inside the closet for whatever reason. And then a voice appears from the closet in her mother's voice to then tell her to go back downstairs. Kaylee